Heseltine is, that's an admirable view, but it's a great U-turn. 2 days before the election, you wrote in the Evening Standard, even without a majority, Cameron will govern without a deal with the Lib Dems, and rightly so. But as soon as the deal is done, it's a fantastic deal.
No.
It's in the interest of the nation.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted that you quoted what I said, because that was the narrow self-interest of the Conservative Party. That's what I thought might well happen. Actually, David Cameron put a national judgment in place and said, no, I will not just do what's the narrow interest of the Conservative Party, I will try to do a deal and make the compromises, because that is what the electorate has asked us to do.
All right. We'll go on to another question.
The reason why we're all three here is because nobody got a majority, and indeed no party got even 40% of the votes of those who voted.
Before we go on to another question, if you're into Twittering, just a reminder that we're at BBC Question Time, and remember you can also text us during the programme, 83981, CFAX page 155 to see what's being said. Watching digitally, push the red button, email us at our website. I know there's a lot of interest in all these topics, and that's the way to get your voice heard. Let's go on to a question on the other foot, so to speak, from Lucy Jane Walker.
Has David Cameron sacrificed too much in forming the new government?
Has David Cameron sacrificed too much? Melanie Phillips.
Well, I think he has, in this respect, that what we have is not really a Conservative government. We have a sort of social democratic Conservative administration. He has, I mean, it's the nature of coalitions that everybody in a coalition sacrifices something, and there are compromises. But for the Conservative leader to have offered to have agreed to whip his MPs into a referendum on the alternative vote, which would actually help cement Labour in power, help defeat Conservatives, I think was a step too far. For a Conservative leader to agree to fetter Parliament by a fixed term in order to keep himself and the Lib Dems locked in a fatal embrace, thus cementing the authority of the executive. I mean, this is such an extraordinary anti-democratic move. It would mean that if Mr. Cameron and Mr. Clegg's government lost the confidence of Parliament by 51%, so that they could not get their legislation through, that administration would still be cemented into power. Thus, at a stroke, Parliament is fettered and the executive is empowered. It is so anti-democratic. Now, I understand why the Lib Dems would propose it. They are neither liberal nor democratic. And they have every interest in keeping themselves with their feet under the table before they disappear again into the irrelevance to which history once consigned them. And hopefully, given the squalid nature of the way in which Mr. Clegg has behaved, hopefully will do again. But for the Conservative Party, which should be... The point about conservatism is that you defend the basic values of this country and its democracy. And for the Conservative Party to have ridden roughshod over Parliament and the Constitution in this way, and to have agreed to create this monstrosity, is indeed a real betrayal of everything the Conservatives should be standing for.
Michael Heseltine.
Well, of course, the Conservative Party cannot ride roughshod over Parliament. It is only Parliament that can pass the necessary legislation. But coming back to your question about whether he's sacrificed too much and we should have had a Conservative government, we couldn't have a Conservative government. And you have to stand on that simple fact. So what does he then do? He can try and go it alone, and he wouldn't have lasted 6 months, either because he didn't want to or because he would have been brought down, or he does a deal. And on all the arithmetic, the British people voted to indicate they wanted a deal. Now, we can spend hours discussing who gave too much.
Anything in what he agreed to that you wouldn't have given?
Well,
voting reform, for instance,
this is the stuff of media, David. I mean,
it's stuff of media. It's the stuff of the voters.
No. They did the deal they thought was right. Only the two negotiating teams can decide who blinks first and where you blink at all. You can't double-guess it unless you're there. It's like trying to do a deal with your neighbour.
But you won't comment on it, is what you're saying?
No, because I'm not going to be put in a position where I'm seen to be taking an independent view. For what purpose? The real question is whether David Cameron was right to do a deal. He had no choice other than a weak, Conservative, short-lived government, and that would have been a worse choice than the one that we've got now.
The idea that a coalition is stable is, I think, itself absurd. Mr Cameron could have taken a gamble. He could have taken the gamble that the Lib Dems would not bring him down, because to do so would be to invite being painted as irresponsible in the face of an economic calamity. He did the deal with the Lib Dems for one reason alone. He was frightened. He was frightened because he thought that if there was another election, he wouldn't win it. He was frightened because he thought that the Lib Dems might go into coalition with Labour, and that would be appalling, not because that coalition would last, because it wouldn't have lasted, but because if that had happened, Mr Cameron would have found himself the leader of the opposition for the fourth time, and he personally probably wouldn't have survived in his own party.
But you see, you're missing the key point. If he had not done a deal and become a weak Conservative administration, as you think, what he could have been absolutely sure about is that within a year he would be very, very unpopular. This government is going to be very unpopular within a year. Just like Obama in America, it's a rough business, there are terrible decisions to be made. And so what he would have left himself with if he'd gone it alone is either an early election in October or the certainty, having done what the country needs, he would have been brought down when his government was very unpopular. It would have been a suicidal decision on his part.
Lord Falconer, this is becoming just the two of you. Lord Falconer.
I don't criticise the Conservatives for seeking the deal with the Liberal Democrats, and I can see the attraction of stability. I don't think that the Conservatives gave too much away. I think they gave practically nothing away. And I think we have got to watch how it goes, and I hope in very many respects that it does work, because that would be best for the nation. But the Liberal Democrats gave away completely to the Tories in relation to the economic position of this country. That's the most important thing. We will have to see...
Rightly, in your view?
Wrongly, in my view, because we stood for a different position, for example, when you started the cuts. But put that to one side. The question is it a stable government, which is what Michael has said. In some respects, I hope that it is. But do you really believe that a party that has both Shirley Williams and Norman Tebbit supporting the same government is stable? But also...
Tebbitt's not supporting it.
There's another aspect to it. Watching Mr Clegg and Mr Cameron, they appear to be absolutely identical in their outlook. When it was Labour in power, it was Blair and Prescott. Now, don't tell me they were the same. We've got a government now that appears to come from an incredibly narrow social base. How will they understand how the people feel over the next few years?
Man and third brother.
Our political parties are supposed to represent diversity among society. Does the new coalition undermine that completely?
This undermines diversity.
Because there's Clegg and Cameron from the same party.
What would you have preferred as an outcome?
Well, one party basically leading. Obviously, it was inevitable the way the Hung Parliament came out that we could not have a distinct leader. But should we have something in place ahead of this to prevent this from happening, because it does undercut the diversity of what each party is supposed to represent?
Okay. The man up there, yes, with the spectacles, you say.
Okay, yeah, so basically my point here is I agree completely with Lord Falconer in that the Tories have given up practically nothing. This is completely reflected in the positions that the Lib Dems have got in the new cabinet. They seem token positions to me. They haven't got any of the top four positions. And I mean, Michael Heseltine could probably tell me more about that for Nick Clegg's position, but that's my view.
There's a question for Michael Heseltine. Given the Deputy Prime Minister post is a non-job, has Nick Clegg not gone from kingmaker to tea-maker?
Well, I have to say, I made awfully good tea in my time as Deputy Prime Minister, probably why John Major gave me the job. But is this a serious question?
This was a question that came in by email to us, yes.
But you don't want to discuss this?
Well, you can yes, because you've been Deputy Prime Minister. You can,
yeah, but...
I wouldn't ask it if we didn't.
Well, if we want to go on the issue of Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg is not in any similar comparison where I was, because he is not of the same party as David Cameron. And the only authority I had as Deputy Prime Minister within a Conservative government was the authority of the Prime Minister. And my writ ran in Whitehall as long as everybody knew that there wasn't a cigarette paper between the Prime Minister and myself. Nobody could bypass me and go to John and say, look, you know what he's trying to do, we should stop him, because John Major would have cut them down. The moment